Hey, it's Karin. Welcome to this episode of A Touch of Genius, your place to get curious about your personal ingenuity and develop your potential. Together, we're going to discover how to break down and break through limitations so we can shine brighter. We'll find out how this helps us create a better life experience wherever we are and explore its far-reaching implications. We'll also be learning more about how someone else's touch of genius impacts us. Get your notebook and cookies ready, and let's dive into this episode. Hello, geniuses. How are you? So, my rabbit friend came to visit again while I was having my coffee this morning. It was really quite cute and fun to watch nature do its thing, listening to the birds chirp as the rabbit scuttled around the grass, accompanied by a small blackbird and sparrow picking at worms close by. Moments like this make me wonder, which is the real world that we're living in? The one where small animals show us that all we need is some sunshine, fresh air and food? Or the one where work, money, business operations, and other activities can often stress us out? In this present moment, I know which one it is for me, and I quite like it. I forgot to mention the butterfly placidly making its way among the flowers. Choosing how we perceive the world we're living in impacts our experience of it. Obviously, some people are living in extremely dangerous and life-threatening situations right now, which can make it hard for them to look at things as placidly as I just laid out for you. But there are people who are not living in such situations who act as if they were. For them, life is a constant battle, even though it doesn't have to be that way. We get to choose how we wish to internalize our experiences. We get to choose how we see life happen around us, and how we interact with it. Now, whether you believe we were born out of stardust particles, a godly energy of creation, or were part of some massive test tube experiment, there is one thing that I hope we can agree on. The question of how to tap into this thing called genius that resides within all of us and amplify it. We can also call it personal excellence or brilliance. Pick your favorite adjective. It's from this place where the magic happens within us. But we need to know how to take care of it. We've already started to talk about why this is important for you, for me, and for the rest of us. Without living into our best lives, it's harder to make our world a safer, happier, and healthier place together. People often talk about nature versus nurture when it comes to genius, and today we'll talk about nurturing it. David Viscut was an author and a psychiatrist who hosted a pioneering radio talk show in the 1980s and 1990s, during which he provided counseling to callers. In his book, Finding Your Strength in Difficult Times, a book of meditations, Viscut stated the following. The purpose of life is to discover your gift. The work of life is to develop it. The meaning of life is to give your gift away. You may have seen or heard shorter versions of this quote that only include the first and third sentences. Having seen it in full, I wonder why people choose to skip the middle part when the development of our work is so crucial to applying purpose and meaning. Without doing the work itself, we can't expect any decent result, can we? This applies to anything in life and why having discipline around it is so important. No musician ever got good at their craft just sitting around waiting for it to happen, even though they may be really talented. No athlete could win races like they do without putting in time to train, eat well, and sleep well. We could go further back in time to a more poetic version of David Viscut's concept in an essay called Gifts, written by the prominent lecturer Ralph Waldo Emerson. In this essay, Emerson argued that a gift is only worthwhile if it is essentially related to the gift giver. Here's an excerpt. Rings and jewels are not gifts, but apologies for gifts. The only gift is a portion of thyself. Therefore the poet brings his poem, the shepherd his lamb, the farmer corn, the miner a stone, the painter his picture, the girl a handkerchief of her own sewing. This is right and pleasing, for it restores society insofar to its primary basis, when a man's biography is conveyed in his gift. This text was written in 1843. Obviously our concepts and ways of gift-giving have expanded, though the essence of what he's saying still prevails. It's what you can give of your making to others that makes it a real gift from you. Remember when a child gives somebody a scribble of a drawing and looks up at them with sheer pride and joy at their work of art? They may still not know how to even draw a tree or a stick figure, but that colorful doodle is their offering of love for you. Do you remember when you used to do that as a child, and how happy you felt giving? Do you still do this sort of thing? These are the best gifts, because someone sat down and consciously created them for somebody else. Anytime we invest our time to create something for somebody else, it's an act of love. Personally, this is how I've always felt and still feel when I'm drawing or making Nikki owls for other people. Has anyone ever written you a poem, a song, or a story? Perhaps even dedicated a book to you, the one they wrote. Those are the adults who didn't let certain experiences close them off from giving something of themselves to you. Gifts aren't always physical objects, though. They're also our labor of love, which can develop into a profession or a business. This requires discipline and nurturing. I can hear some people say, well, Karin, not everybody can make a living from their talents, and basket weaving isn't in high demand in my city. Fair enough. But what if doing it simply gave you joy? How would that impact your daily life? It can also be that over time and experiences, we learn to hold ourselves back from giving those gifts or those offerings. So instead of picturing ourselves actively dedicating ourselves to that which we love, we hunker down into some idea of what we should be doing. When it comes to living our purpose in life, not everyone is working in their desired field or specialization. Therefore, not everyone is giving their true gifts to the people in their world, and I think this is sad. Whenever people ask me about the personal development work I do, I like to say that I help people discover the hidden gems within the treasure chest of their heart. That's how I feel about helping people dig deep within themselves to overcome their fears and internal obstacles, to uncover their true self and bring that to light, just like an archaeologist digging in the dirt to find a valuable historical artifact. In the previous episode, I mentioned that I love history. When I was about 8 years old, I wanted to be a writer and an archaeologist, although I later leaned just towards writing. Over time, you might say that I found a different way of being an archaeologist, or rather a treasure hunter, like an Indiana Jones of the heart, you might say. Your gifts may be that you're good at numbers and you help people with their finances. Your gift may be that your logical mind can help people build great business strategies. Your gift could be understanding which traumas or emotions are driving a person's sickness and helping them heal it. Your gift could also be that you are a great artist and you've never even explored your own possibilities. You may have multiple gifts that cross different sectors. Which leads us to our interactive part of this episode, which means have something to write with. I have 8 questions for you to answer, and then we'll unpack them. There's no right or wrong answer, simply whatever comes up for you. Try not to filter your answers, just go with the flow of whatever comes up. We're sorting through that treasure chest right now, and remember to pause between questions to give yourself time with each one. There's a printable PDF that you can download from the show notes to go through these questions with more time. Here we go. 1. Who are you? 2. What are you good at doing? 3. What do you really love dedicating your time to? 4. What is your personal gift that you give to others? 5. If you don't think you have one, what could it be? 6. If you know that you have one, are you expressing it? 7. If you're holding it back, why do you choose to do so? 8. How could you start developing it? Flow with the idea of what your life could look like and feel like once you start doing it. Okay, so if your answer to the first question included words such as accountant, entrepreneur, lawyer, musician, mother, father, then you've listed a whole bunch of what you do answers, but they're not really who you are. Who you are is the essence of your human being. It's your identity and personality. This refers to who you are as a person, including your values, beliefs, and characteristics. Now try to answer that first question again. Hit pause for as long as you need. Did that generate awareness in you as to who you are versus what you do? Does it help you feel lighter about yourself by any chance? Now for the second question. Here's where you will have started to separate what you do from who you are. By digging deeper into who you are, you've been able to broaden your perspective of yourself, which can inform you of further possibilities around what you can do. In the third question, did you perhaps discover that you're not actually doing the things you really love, even though you're doing other stuff? Let's explore that disconnect, because this is where your true essence comes alive with the things that you love. Remember, we don't have to build careers out of everything that we love doing, but we can use that energy to feel better about ourselves and feel that we are respecting ourselves as a whole. This will imbue everything we do with a different energy. If you have children, they're watching you, and these are the cues that they are taking to learn how they should be or what they should do in their lives. No amount of telling them, do as I say, not as I do, will curb the fact that you're doing, or not doing, something that is inadvertently teaching them to forget themselves in the process. How many of us grew up watching our parents function in a particular way, and then years later we realized we were repeating their pattern, which wasn't serving us or our highest good? How many adults are stuck working at things they detest? How many of them are complaining that they can't do what they really want to do? How many of them are actually carving out time to make changes so they can do what they really want to do? It's easy to find excuses. They're everywhere, especially if you have a smartphone. That thing can ping your attention senseless in so many different ways that you must attend to urgently, but do you really need to? One of the reasons that people do not fulfill or even discover their purpose is because they allow for distractions. And then they use these distractions as logical reasons why they do not choose to develop a discipline to discover themselves and work on their purpose. And if adults are doing this, then how can their children find it in themselves without the encouragement? It's not up to the schools to do all of that work after all, even though some of them may actually be good at it. Then we wonder why we have so many lost kids. This is the other side of discipline. If you don't see it in your parents, or at least one of them, you may never develop the habit yourself, which is why it can seem so hard to develop it later on in life. It's not impossible though. You just have to get really centered on why you would want to do it and anchor in those reasons to motivate you to stick with it. I remember years ago, for whoever remembers the hype of Yahoo Chat, I would talk to teenagers around the world, a lot of them in the US. I was shocked to learn that so many of them had suicidal tendencies or were self-harming. I just didn't get it. Here I was, sitting in a house full of books and creativity, beginning to craft an idea of what my own life could become, yet these other teenagers were sad, depressed, lost, and inflicting violence upon themselves. It was such a stark contrast, I didn't even know how to address it. I wonder how many of those teenagers made it into their adult lives and how they're doing now. Did they find their joy? Did they find their gifts? Did they heal those teenage wounds? Do they have kids now? And how is their family life? It's so important to feel that we are being nurtured when it comes to the things that light us up. That we create a discipline and work ethic around nurturing and developing our skills, talents, and abilities. So many generations of families have been impacted by this, and with the increased distractions of social media or even the entertainment world, kids nowadays see their favorite artists or influencers rise to fame but never see the work it takes. They want to copy that result without putting in the time, energy, and commitment to develop their own talents, skills, or abilities, or mere interests. Everything has to be instant, and if it isn't, expect a tantrum. I believe that kids need to be encouraged to explore their gifts and develop their own discipline around them, so that they have a better chance of being more conscious, purpose-driven adults. And when I say purpose-driven, I don't mean that they should just think about money as their purpose. In workshops that I've done at schools, I've literally heard 10-year-old kids say that when they're older, they want to have a lot of money so they can buy a nice house and a nice car. And I was gobsmacked when I heard that the first time. Some also wanted to be famous football players for the same reasons. I knew in part that they were parroting what their parents might be saying at home about if I had a lot of money, or how they're seeing their favorite sports stars live with their earnings. But really? Is that what kids aspire to? You know, money is a nice and useful thing, but you have to wonder how this idea alone is impacting their soul at such an early age. I'd love to hear what your kids are aspiring to these days, because if we really want a more wholehearted, conscious world, we need to make sure they're living from the heart too, not getting distracted by materialism and big money, unless they're willing to make a conscious use of it for our collective good. Speaking of consciousness, we're born into this world with a certain level of consciousness, and depending on our upbringing and environment, it can get stifled or encouraged. If you didn't get that encouragement as a kid, it's never too late, and even though we probably don't know each other, I'm here to encourage you to start becoming more aware of who you are and exploring your gifts. This is not a race, this is a journey, and it's different for each one of us, even though we may share the same desire to live a good life. This is what unites us and helps us develop our skills, talents, and abilities to help one another in our unique ways. Because you are unique. In the fourth question, if you already know what your gifts are, wonderful. I'd love to hear from you what they are and how you feel you're making a difference in the people around you. We need to hear more of these stories so that other people can get inspired. In the fifth question, if you're unclear or feeling doubtful as to who you are and what your best qualities are or what those gifts are, pick 3 people that you trust and whom you feel see you clearly, respect you, and love you. Ask them what they see in you. They may come up with some great things that you're not even aware of. They may also point out some of your blind spots, and that's okay. A good friend will tell you this and encourage you to work on it for your highest good. In the 6th question, if you're clear on your gifts but you're not using them as you'd like to, it's important to know what may be stopping you from doing so. Is it time, resources, money, comparison, other commitments? Are you overly committed that you can't carve out time for developing or applying that part of you? Is there a voice inside your head that says you can't or you shouldn't? Don't should on yourself. A quick message about comparison. I recently heard someone who gives spiritual talks say that it doesn't matter if there are already tens or hundreds of people doing what you do, saying the same things. There are people out there who haven't heard you say it the way you say it, and they'll get the message by hearing it from you, even if they heard it 10 times before from other people. That gave me peace, and I hope it gives you peace too. Because what that means is that instead of falling into comparison mode, which typically blocks us from moving forward, we get to keep being us. And by you being more of you, you will inevitably attract the right people for you, your so-called tribe, your community. They want what feels authentic to them, and that's why they choose you over someone else, because they like what you do and how you do it. In the 7th question, we often get in our own way without realizing it because we're so used to the stories that we tell ourselves about our own capabilities or possibilities. This is actually the most important awareness that we can have because once we know what that is, we can actually do something about it. Then everything else is just a matter of planning, learning, and connecting with people. Regarding the 8th question, it's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and forget to check in with ourselves. We may spin our wheels trying to get ahead and lose sight of who we really are or why we're doing what we're doing. So let's come back to heart and center. Let's get clear on how we feel about ourselves so that we can function from this place of conscious awareness and purpose. This will create the discipline around how to go about it and for us to keep nurturing it within ourselves. Here's a bonus question that I'll throw at you. Do you feel like your presence is a gift to anyone? I hope you do. And if you don't, let today be the day that you start to feel this way, because your presence is a gift, and what you can offer others is important. Perhaps you just haven't ever been told so, or been helped to feel or see yourself that way. I didn't end up working in personal development because it was something I aspired to early on. It came from my own self-discovery process. After learning certain techniques to improve myself, I realized I wanted to help other people in their personal evolution. One of the things that seemed to come most naturally to me was to hold a safe space for people to talk openly about their concerns. But I didn't really notice it until people started telling me that's how my presence made them feel. In fact, if you follow author and artist Sark, short for Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, she gave me a name on a group call once. Sark often hosts virtual group workshops on creativity and intuitively gives people names based on their energy that she picks up from them. In my case, it was nourishing presence. This sums up what a lot of people have told me consistently over the years, that I help them feel safe and comfortable to share certain aspects of themselves that they're struggling with and help them find a way to break through them. Sark just found a way to simplify it in just 2 words. Am I always on point with that nourishing presence within myself? Nope. We all have stuff to work through. That's why I personally find it frustrating when certain people think that coaches and therapists should have it all together and that if we don't, somehow that discredits our ability to help other people. We're humans too, and there are a lot of unexpected things that can happen to any one of us at any given time. Most people I know in this field are some of the deepest, most courageous people for doing their own inner work and being honest about the good and the bad of it. This is what makes them relatable, of being hands-on to help people work through their own stuff. The benefit of doing one's own personal work, whether or not you dedicate yourself to this professionally as well, is that you have more tools and resources by which to manage yourself under different conditions. Also, we all come across really challenging people who poke at our blind spots, vulnerabilities, or triggers in order to make us out as though we're the difficult ones, then try to undermine our professional abilities because of this. The difference with most people I know in this field is that there is a predisposition to self-correct because of that dedication to personal growth in service of others. Don't get me wrong, it can be very uncomfortable to face our own issues or faults at times. This is the beauty of self-awareness, though. Once you know better, you can do better, and then you can share it. So many people fear that the negative things they have about themselves define who they are. That's why they usually hold back from doing the inner work it takes to break free of their own limiting beliefs or negative behaviors. But this is usually a distorted personal view. It's ego keeping them small. So I'll take a leap here and share something with you. For a long time, most of my adult life practically, I felt that I shouldn't show anger because it would break this picture-perfect idea I had of who I should be and how people should see me and how much they would love me. Can you relate to that? Over time and experiences, I learned that we need to allow ourselves to feel any and all emotions without suppressing them so that they don't eat us up from within or derail us. How could I encourage other people to feel all their emotions if I was blocking out some of my own? So I learned to get acquainted with those darker shades of emotions within me and not feel shame around releasing them. It was like my ultimate test, to be my own nourishing presence. Thankfully, I don't feel that sort of emotion often, though now I can respect it when it comes up. Also, how you express those types of emotions is important, and many people blindly unleash their anger on other people in harmful ways. It helps to have healthy outlets like writing, painting, music, or some kind of sport. These are some of the healthy ways that one can choose to release these emotions without negatively impacting anyone else. You can also scream into a pillow if you want. It would be great if you can encourage your kids to adopt these healthier habits too, instead of screaming at people or breaking things. It's much easier to teach them this now than have them figure it out decades later when they may have caused a lot of pain and chaos in their lives, not knowing a different way to release anger. It's not comfortable to look at your own darker emotions, but when you understand that it's in service of your own light, and that your light can impact other people to amplify their own, then it makes sense. It becomes imperative, actually. It's an energetic and emotional responsibility that goes beyond you, and it's part of nurturing yourself. Some people get stuck in the dark. They get trapped by anger, fear, rage, hurt, guilt, and so many other shades of negative emotions. They can even develop a sensitivity to light, rejecting people whose predominant emotional and energetic charge is positive, kind, and loving. Some of those people even set out to undermine the positive, kind, and loving people just because of that, because they can't stand that they could actually stay in that light. Sometimes this happens in phases, sometimes it becomes their operative norm. That's probably because they haven't been made to feel safe and supported to come out of the dark. Or, for some reason, they've chosen to stay there. For any Star Wars fans out there, you know exactly what that inner fight is about. And whilst we all have free will, and we choose whether we stay in the light or in the dark, it's also important to feel that we have people around us who encourage us to get through the tunnel and step into our light. I saw this quote the other day online and thought it was fitting to share in this episode. Healing is so hard because it is a constant battle between your inner child who is scared and just wants safety, your inner teenager who is angry and just wants justice, and your current self who is tired and just wants peace. It's a pretty powerful contemplation, isn't it? This is why personal development work is so important, to unify these aspects of ourselves so that we can offer others our best version. Each one of us has been gifted with unique qualities that we can express through our relationships and the work that we do. We all have certain gifts we can share with others, whether it's the gift of listening, of empathy, of insight, of creativity, of innovation, and so many more. These are our human gifts. They are inherent in all of us, though we may or may not develop them. One person who was prolific in sharing her gifts was our genius of this week's episode, Beatrix Potter, one of my creative idols growing up. Beatrix Potter was an English author of children's books who created Peter Rabbit, among many other animal characters. Potter was the only daughter of heirs to Cotton fortunes. She spent a solitary childhood which was made more lively during long holidays that she spent in Scotland or the English Lake District. These inspired her love of animals and stimulated her fabulous watercolour drawings. On one of these holidays in Scotland, at age 27, she sent an illustrated animal story to a sick child of a former governess. The story was about 4 bunnies named Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. This illustrated letter was received so well that she decided to publish it privately as The Tale of Peter Rabbit. A year later, it was published commercially with great success. During the next 20 years, she published another 22 books, all of it based on her love of animals and the countryside. Quite simple, no? Oftentimes, what we're seeking is right under our nose. We just don't see it because we're so busy stuck in our past or future thoughts about so much rubbish that distracts us. Kind of like seeing the love of your life standing in front of you without realizing that that person will become the love of your life. The same thing happens with your gifts. So, I'm going to ask you a simple question. When are you going to share your gifts? I can tell you one thing for sure. There is no some day on the calendar. I've looked for it myself. I became aware of this after reaching a crucial turning point in my life in which I was faced with the question of whether I wanted to keep doing what I was doing in the SEO world, or whether I wanted to start living out the dreams I'd had as a young girl to write and publish my own books and further develop Nikki Owl as a cartoon character. I realized that I had been pushing this off by living my life and procrastinating on my own dreams. But if we don't make a point of understanding the importance of our gifts, of hanging out with them, and then sharing them, we miss one of the most beautiful things that we can do with our lives. We miss out on giving the best of ourselves to other people. Today, my wish for you is that you start to explore or dig deeper into that treasure chest of your own heart. Look for the hidden gems and ask for help to find them if you need it. Our world will be better off experiencing the gifts that live within you. As we wrap up today's show, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. It means a lot to me. You see, whenever we create something, we always take a leap of faith into the unknown, and we don't always know how it'll work out. That's part of what this podcast is about, encouraging all of us to take leaps of faith on our ideas, dreams, and creations, and having a safe space to explore them, to build the strength to get back up when we fall, and to celebrate when we fly high. I'd love to know what your big takeaway is from this episode. Tell me what you're working through and what you'd like to know more about. Also, is there someone you'd like me to interview on the topic of genius? Let me know. Email me at hello@karinpinter.com or message me on my socials. In the meantime, take care of your genius self.